everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another recent reads video. I will be talking about most of the books that I read in the month of October. So I want to talk about pretty much all of my 5-star reads of the month, and then I have a couple of really strong 4-star reads, and then one book in particular that I did not really like all that much. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get on into this video. So I pretty much started out this month with reading volumes 3 and 4 of Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. This is an epic science fiction comic series, definitely an adult series. I do want to point that out. Definitely an adult series because of the graphic images, not just sexual images, but just violent images as well. But this is a series that I've been very slowly working my way through. There's only 10 volumes currently out, so definitely savoring this series for sure because I don't want to run out of volumes. But I reread volume 3 and then I jumped right into volume 4. So our story mainly centers around a romance between Alana and Marco. This is the two of them in this stunning historical romance clinch cover style art. I'm obsessed with it. But they are essentially from two different planets, two different species almost, I would say. And these two planets are at war. I think it's technically like a moon and a planet, and then there's this other planet that has gotten involved as well. And so yeah, it's just an epic adventure, and you never know where the plot is gonna go with this series for sure. But I am just absolutely obsessed with every volume that I have read so far. I can't even tell you a favorite volume. I've truly loved all 4 volumes that I've read so far pretty equally. I cannot recommend this enough. I feel like this has something for everyone because, like I said, it's epic science fiction. There's some cozy elements as well because of the family that Alana and Marco have formed, and of course the romance is great, and it's just incredible. The art style is spectacular, just truly next level. So I cannot wait to jump into volume 5 at some point in the near future. Next up, we have a book that I didn't like so much, unfortunately. This is Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. So I have read her debut novel, which was The Hacienda. That one was more of like a gothic horror novel. I mean, this kind of is gothic too, but The Hacienda, you know, centered around this hacienda. You know, it was a character in itself, so that definitely was more gothic. Whereas this one is more of just a supernatural Western novel. These both have romances featured prominently, but I definitely enjoyed The Hacienda a lot more than this one. The Hacienda I gave 4 stars. This one I settled on like 2.5 stars. So the very basic premise is that it's taking place in the 1840s when the United States invades Mexico. And so we're centering around that war, but there's also vampires thrown into the mix, so that's where the supernatural element comes in. There's also our 2 major characters, Nena and Nestor. This is a childhood friends to lovers romance, whereas the romance in The Hacienda was actually a priest romance, and I really liked that romance. But this one, you know, there's definitely some sweet elements to their romance, and I liked Nena and Nestor enough, but I found myself getting very frustrated with Nena. I feel like she pushed Nestor away way too much throughout this book. I get why she was pushing him away, but it just became too much and I just got frustrated. And I felt that this book moved incredibly slowly. I really loved the setting. I really loved the story that we were telling, and I really loved the historical context that I was learning while reading this book. But to me, it just felt so slow. It was such a chore for me to pick this book up. And I was listening to the audiobook to help me get through it, and it still felt very slow. So for those 2 main reasons, you know, the romance really didn't do it for me and the pacing was very slow. That's why I ended up on like a 2.5 star rating. Yeah, I'm just left feeling sad when I look at this book. I really wanted to love it way more than I did. All right, next up, I want to talk about White Hot by Ilona Andrews. This is book 2 in their Hidden Legacy series. If you didn't know, Ilona Andrews is a husband and wife author duo, and I'm obsessed with everything that I have read from them. So in this book, we are continuing on with Connor and Nevada's amazing romance, just top tier romance. In this book, they finally get together for real, and it's just incredible. Like, the angst and the tension between these two, it's just, it's everything. And to see them like actually confess their feelings to each other and actually get together in this book, it's incredible. But this is also a murder mystery. We've got kind of a new villain going on in this book. But we're also dealing with the same sort of villain from book 1. And this is just incredible. I was rereading this book. I've been rereading the first 3 books of this series before jumping into the second trilogy, because I still have not read Catalina and Alessandro's story, but I have read these 3 books before, and so I just wanted to reread these books to remind myself of the story, because there is a lot going on in this world. This basically takes place in an alternate universe in Houston. Also, the side characters, like Nevada's family is everything. Oh my god. Her Grandma Frida, and her mom Penelope, they are the definition of badass. I love her cousins and her sisters, Catalina, and what's her other sister's name? Arabella. There is just so much to love about this series. There's so much going on, and it is all so well done. The pacing is immaculate. The action scenes are incredible. The romance is incredible. Like, what more could you ask for from an urban fantasy romance series? So I'm so excited to continue on my reread with Wildfire, which is the 3rd book. And then there's a novella that connects the first trilogy with the second trilogy. So very excited to reread those this month. And then I can finally jump into Sapphire Flames. Next up, we had our most recent round of Novellathon. This is a readathon that is hosted by myself, Ava, Tiffany, and Samantha. And I had so much fun with this round because I was truly in the mood for all of the spooky and creepy and paranormal romance novellas, and I found some really great novellas this time around. First one I have to bring up, oh my god, I finally read Morning Glory Milking Farm by C.M. Nascosta, and boy was this an interesting experience. I loved this, and I did not expect to, because the premise is so weird. If you don't know, basically, we have our main character, Violet. She's a human, so this is a monster romance series, as I'm sure you can tell from the cover. By the way, I'm obsessed with the covers of this series. They are stunning. But Violet is desperate for work. She finds this ad for this milking farm, and basically their objective is to collect Minotaur semen, to then put into drugs that humans consume. So she gets a job as a technician, and there is this one Minotaur in particular named Rourke who comes in once a week, and he is just very sweet. They have this instant connection, and things go on from there. Now I know, if you've never heard that premise before and you're just now hearing it from me, you're gonna think to yourself, hell no, I am staying away from this book. And I was kind of the same way. I was definitely weirded out by the premise, but I had also heard a lot of people talking about how sweet this romance is. And the sweetness really takes you by surprise. I mean, you just don't expect that vibe from the premise, right? But like I said, they have this instant connection, and Rourke is like the definition of a stern brunch daddy. He totally, you know, gives out those vibes of just firm kindness that I am a sucker for, truly. And so yeah, this is just very sweet and swoony and incredibly sexy. Just did not expect to love this as much as I did, and I really need to continue on with the Cambric Creek series. This is book 1, and that series also, C.M. Nascosta recently wrote their romance from Rourke's POV. I think it's called a Blue Ribbon romance. And the audiobook recently came out for that one. So I think I'm gonna have to listen to that one at some point, because this book is all from Violet's POV, so I would love to get a glimpse into Rourke's POV. What can I say other than this was spectacular, and I am so glad that I finally read it, and I need to read everything that C.M. Nascosta has ever written. Also, for Novellathon, we had the amazing privilege of interviewing C.M. Nascosta on, I think it was Samantha's channel, so I will link that live show either down in the description or up in the cards above. So next up, we have two amazing historical romance novellas that I read during Novellathon. The first one is The Secrets of a Moonlit Night by Lisa Braden. So I have read a few of her full-length novels, specifically from her Rescued from Ruin series, and I've really enjoyed them, especially The Devil is a Marquis. That is truly a top-tier historical romance. If you love Devil in Winter by Lisa Kleypas, I think that Devil is a Marquis is even better. That's just my opinion. But I was very intrigued when I saw this cover, and the premise is everything. So we have our two main characters, Elizabeth and Thomas. Elizabeth is a governess for these three children, and the children are so adorable and funny. I love kids, especially in historical romances. I feel like that they just add a lot to the story, and most of the time they're just adorable and hilarious, and that is definitely the case here. But Elizabeth is definitely jaded from her past. She's had some pretty negative experiences with men, and so now she's very distrustful of them in general. Then we have Thomas, who is a scarred hero. He is renovating the abbey next door to the estate that Elizabeth is living at, and you know, she's working as a governess. And so there's been rumors around town about this like scarred phantom monster man that's just been lurking around their area, and of course it's actually just Thomas. And then there's also this ghost that haunts the abbey, and so this ghost decides to like be a matchmaker and get Elizabeth and Thomas together. So that was everything, and I just was so hooked from page one. And it's not very long, it's only 75 pages, you will fly through it. It just had the perfect gothic vibes, the paranormal element with the ghost, and it was also just a sweet and sexy and swoony romance. I truly loved the connection between Elizabeth and Thomas. I love that in particular, she was just obsessed with the sound of his voice. Like, she could not get over it, and then she just kept calling him perfect, and like, it was very sweet. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. Could not help but give that one 5 stars. Another 5-star historical romance novella from that round of Novellathon was The Phantom of Drury Lane by Kate Bateman. I am a huge fan of Kate Bateman. I especially love her banter. I think that it's just like so well written and so fun between her heroes and heroines. And this one, as you can tell from the title and cover and everything, it is a Phantom of the Opera retelling. This is about Will and Lucy. This is kind of like a childhood friends to sort of enemies to friends again to lovers again situation. Also, this is part of a novella series that is centering around the Drury Lane theater. I have since also read another novella in this series that I'll talk about in a minute, that was about them doing renovations on the theater, and so now this one takes place later on when the renovations have been done. And so getting back to Will and Lucy, they grew up together. I think that Will was one of Lucy's brother's best friends, and so he used to kind of pull pranks on her and get under her skin. But when they were about like 18 years old or so, they share a kiss, but Will immediately pushes her away because he's about to go off to war, and so he doesn't want her to form an attachment to him. And so now he's back, it's years later, and so he is now an investor in the Drury Lane theater, and there is this phantom that has been attending the performances at this theater and has been definitely causing a commotion in the ton. People are definitely very interested in knowing who the heck this phantom is, and so Lucy and Will end up investigating together who the phantom is. And this was just fun and delightful and sweet and swoony, and like I said, the banter is great. So I just highly recommend it. And then the other novella that I read, a part of this series, is called The Duke of Drury Lane. This is book 1 of the series. You definitely don't have to read this series in order. Clearly I didn't. So this one, like I already mentioned, is when they are trying to renovate the theater and they desperately need funds to do so. And so Lily, is that her name? Yes, Lily, our heroine, is the accountant for the theater, her boss asks her to approach Drake, who is a duke. He is known as the difficult duke because he has thrown tantrums in public. He seems to be on the spectrum based on just how the author wrote his character, and it seems that he would throw tantrums when he was overstimulated maybe, and so now society is definitely kind of like distancing themselves from him, but he definitely needs to save his reputation. And so Lily's boss is like, hey, you can probably convince him to donate to the theater by telling him that it'll save his reputation, basically. And so she approaches him and they have this immediate connection, but Lily is also taken aback by how like odd he is. He has just very interesting mannerisms. It seems he kind of has maybe OCD as well. Like he's very particular about how things are arranged in rooms that he's in, you know, different things like that. And the connection between Lily and Drake is just so sweet and sensual. There's just something about this romance that was really unique. I don't think I've read anything quite like it before, just because of the way that these two characters used touch to like soothe each other and comfort each other. It was just very sweet. And I loved this because Drake falls so hard for Lily first. I love a romance where the hero falls first. There's also some straight up touch her and you die vibes. Like there's a scene later on in the novella where like, did he just kill someone for her? Like, you know? And I just love this. Like this was so much more than the premise would lead you to believe. I did not expect to have such a connection to the hero and heroine. I did not expect this romance to be just so sweeping and swoony. This is definitely one of those novellas that packs quite a punch in just like 100 pages. So would highly, highly recommend this one, and I cannot wait to check out more of the novellas in this series. And I also am very much looking forward to checking out more from this author. All right, next up, I finally read Twisted Lies by Anna Huang. I have finally finished the Twisted series by Anna Huang, and I'm so, so excited. So this one is Christian and Stella's romance. As you can tell, it's a thick boy for sure. And I will say that's the one thing that got in the way of me giving this a 5-star rating. I felt it was just a little bit too long. I think this could have been edited a bit more, but nonetheless, it's definitely a very strong 4-star or even a 4.5-star read for me personally. So this is a fake dating romance. It's also a billionaire romance. We know that Anna Huang knows how to write billionaire romances. I am obsessed with her heroes. There's just a vibe that her heroes have that I'm just a sucker for. I love it so much because Christian is one of those heroes that he's seemingly, you know, very cold, very stoic, yet he becomes obsessed with Stella, and the way that he falls for this woman is just everything. Everything. I loved it so much. But there's kind of a lot going on with this book. This series, I would say, they're like light dark romances because there's darker themes, but these are not quite as dark as like actual dark romances, you know? But Stella has a stalker, and so she's dealing with that. So yeah, Christian is a billionaire. He owns like a cybersecurity and general security company, and then Stella is an influencer, and so they end up fake dating to kind of benefit both of their careers, but definitely more so Stella's. And then Stella has a stalker, and so we're dealing with that. Christian is super, super protective of her. Love that. I love how obsessive he is over her. I love the touch her and you die vibes that we get in this. Like, Christian is definitely morally gray. The things that he does, the lengths that he'll go to protect Stella and just him living his life, like, he's definitely a bit unhinged, I would say. But I really did love this at the end of the day. The audiobook is really great, and I'm just really excited to go into Anna Huang's newest series, which is it the King of Sin series or something like that? The first book is King of Wrath. So yes, very, very excited to go into that new series because I've heard nothing but phenomenal things about those books. Next up, I read 2 traditionally published romances that I actually really loved. Lately, I've definitely been losing faith in especially contemporary traditionally published romances. They have just not, in general, been serving what I need from them, if that makes sense. I've definitely been disappointed. by some of the more recent ones that I've read. However, these two were really great. The first one is The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. I definitely have to shout out Christy from Christy Reads a Lot. She recommended this on both her YouTube and Bookstagram, and the premise immediately hooked me. We have Cassie and Aiden, our hero and heroine, and Cassie used to have an OnlyFans account, and Aiden, turns out, was like her biggest fan, and they used to have like private webcam sessions together. Like these two were pretty much in a relationship, and then Aiden ended up pretty much ghosting Cassie for reasons, and then Cassie just deleted her account because she was so heartbroken. And so now it's a couple years later. Cassie is definitely in some financial trouble, and so she sees this ad for a nanny job where she would be living at the house with her employer and the child that she would be looking after, and so it just sounds really too good to be true. So she reaches out and she has an interview with Aiden, who, like I said, he was a big fan of her OnlyFans, but she doesn't know that because they never really showed their faces to each other on camera. And so yeah, she ends up being the nanny to Sophie, who is Aiden's daughter. And first of all, I loved the side characters in this, because first of all, we have Sophie, like I said, that's Aiden's daughter. I loved what she added to the story. And then Wanda, who is Cassie's neighbor before she moved into Aiden's place, and like she is hilarious. She's absolutely everything. And I also just loved the connection between Aiden and Cassie. Like, it was truly explosive between the two of them, and I was just so addicted, you know? I will say this wasn't like an absolutely like perfect 5-star read for me, mainly because I found myself getting frustrated with Cassie. Basically, she figures out way before Aiden that Aiden is Aiden. So I'm sitting here for a good, I swear, like 30 to 40% of the book, and I'm like, girl, just tell him. Just tell him. But other than me getting frustrated with the heroine at times, this was spectacular. Aiden is also just the epitome of a cinnamon roll hero, but he is like a freak in the sheets, and I am here for it. This was also very sexy, and I did not expect that from a traditionally published romance. Also, I really didn't expect all that much from this book because of the cover. To me, the cover looks super generic and the title is super generic, but just give this book a chance and hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I did. And then the other traditionally published romance that I loved this month was My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine, or Jenna Levine. So we have another heroine named Cassie in this book. That's interesting. And we have Frederick, who is a vampire, as you can tell from the title, right? This is another situation where the heroine ends up living with the hero, but this one is different. Cassie, in this one, she is also in financial trouble. So she sees this ad where Frederick is only asking for $200 a month to be his roommate. And so she's like, what is going on? But she meets him, and he's like the most gorgeous man that she's ever seen, and they have this immediate connection. But Frederick is also, you know, very interesting, very quirky. He's also awkward, but he's also the epitome of a gentleman. I love Frederick so much. Basically, he was accidentally poisoned, and he's been in a coma-like state for the past 100 years. And so he recently woke up from said coma, and now he has no idea how the world works, because obviously a lot has changed between the 1920s and the 2020s, right? And so he mainly wants to get a roommate so that they can hopefully help him blend into today's society. And so yeah, he's very awkward and quirky because he, you know, is coming from living in the 1920s, basically. And he is just, oh, he's so sweet though, so swoony, an absolute gentleman. But he's also a vampire, so that's very interesting for sure. This book also had a really great side character, Reginald, who is Frederick's frenemy, kind of. Like, they're friends, but Reginald is also kind of a mess. But yeah, this was just a delight from start to finish. I found myself laughing out loud at times. This book has gotten a lot of mixed reviews, and I can kind of see why, but I personally just really loved it, and I would highly recommend it. And then last but certainly not least, we have After Midnight by Teresa Medeiros. So I reread this for the Blushing Blue Stocking Society. This was our October book club pick, we had our live show on November 5th, so I will link that live show either down in the description or up in the cards above. So this book, really this duet, it's a series of 2 books that are definitely interconnected, so you really need to start with this one before you jump into book 2, which is The Vampire Who Loved Me. This duet is truly top tier for me. These are some of my absolute favorite historical romances of all time. I can say that now. Now that I've reread this first book, like, it has solidified for me how much I truly love this series. And this book, this romance in particular, is amazing. But so is the romance in book 2, but they definitely have different vibes to them. Where do I even start? Oh my god. Like, this also is a gothic paranormal historical romance. And I feel like Teresa Medeiros truly nailed all of those vibes. And I am absolutely obsessed with this romance between Caroline and Adrian. Basically, the premise, we have Adrian, who is a Viscount, and we have Caroline, whose younger sister Vivienne is being courted by Adrian, but there's rumors going around that Adrian might be a vampire. And so Caroline is definitely very suspicious of Adrian, but at the same time, these two cannot help but be drawn to each other and fall for each other throughout this book. And like I said, it also has the perfect gothic, you know, darker historical romance vibes to it, because they end up going to stay at Adrian's castle. And like, this just is the epitome of gothic romance, even down to Caroline being in a nightgown and exploring the castle at night. Like, it's just so good. And like, Adrian, my love for Adrian truly knows no bounds. Like, to me, he is one of the hottest heroes that I've ever read. Like, he's just so magnetic. I am drawn to this man, and he's not real. He's not real. He only exists in this duet. Like, what is wrong with me? Like, I just love him so much. Also, here's the step back. It's really beautiful. But it's just, oh, it's so good. It's so angsty because, you know, Vivienne is the one that's being courted by Adrian, and there's just so much going on in this story, and I just think it's so well done. There are some heart-wrenching, heartbreaking moments, but also just so many beautiful moments between Caroline and Adrian, and I just love how fiercely these two love their families, because Caroline has been caring for her 2 younger sisters for a very long time, and then Adrian has been caring for his younger brother Julian for a long time, and they'll do anything. They'll go to the ends of the earth to fight for and care for their family. And there is just something for everyone in this. Like I said, there's so much angst going on, but there's also really great banter between Caroline and Adrian. We've got the gothic vibes, we've got the paranormal vibes, we've got the historical romance going on. Like, it's just incredible. I could talk about this book, I could talk about this romance, I could talk about this duet forever, but I'm gonna stop myself because I'm sure I will be talking about it a lot in the live show. It's tomorrow because I'm filming this on November 4th, but the live show is on November 5th, so I will have plenty of time to just rave and rave about this book for sure. But that's going to be it for my most recent reads. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope that you guys got some recommendations as well. I would love it if you would leave a comment down below telling me about your favorite reads of October, or if you had any duds in October, tell me about that as well. And as usual, please leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!